welcome to our webinar on enhancing SLAs with XLAs, or looking at talking about XLAs, some of the benefits, the skills, and even some certification um, insights into XLAs or experience management. This is the second in our series of webinars where we look beyond traditional service management. The first, as you may have been part of way back in, I think it was in June, we looked at next generation service management. All right. And today we're going to be looking at XLAs or experience management. And for decades, organizations have relied on service level agreements or SLAs as the standard by which we measure performance. They tell us if our systems are available, if tickets are being resolved, if response times are being met. But yet, increasingly, our leaders are recognizing that SLAs alone cannot capture the human side of service, how people actually experience technology, how it shapes productivity, and how it influences engagement. And this is where experience level agreements come in, because XLAs extend the conversation beyond the operational efficiency, providing us a lens to be able to measure perception, to measure sentiment, and the outcomes that truly matter to employees and, very importantly, our customers. Looking at experience management as a measurable asset, how organizations are integrating XLAs into their strategies, and why this represents the next frontier in service management. So our goal is to move beyond metrics that measure activity, to be able to look at metrics that measure impact. Because in the end, what matters the most is not just what we will deliver, but how it is experienced. And I've got a couple of really good people working with me today on the panel with me. I'm going to introduce firstly Robin Marchand. And Robin Marchand is an experienced service level professional. Robin has been involved in the XLA Institute for a long time, and he's been responsible for strategic development and implementation of experience management and XLA frameworks. All right. He leads the creation of the certification programs, training, master classes for professionals and organizations. And additionally, he coordinates partnerships with MSPs, corporate clients, and research organizations, and many technology providers. Helps to facilitate events and workshops and drives market introductions of XLA-driven solutions. Right? His focus is really on professionalizing the digital and employee experience, enhancing XLA capabilities, and strengthening the global XLA community. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you, Julian, and nice to have you here. And I'm looking forward to have this discussion together about XLAs.
Just to get us going, we're going to listen to a quick intro from another XLA Institute director, Alan Nance in the US, and he's going to give us a nice brief overview of XLAs and SLAs.
Goeiedag, Zuid-Afrika, Sawubona, Ningizimu, Africa. If, like me, you've had a Camelot moment, one of those moments where you're in a team and everything clicks, everything comes together. You're fully motivated, you're making long hours, you're having tremendous success, then you know that experience matters and that how you feel influences how you perform. And there's no better feeling than being a good contributor in a high-performing team. Now, every executive I've ever met wants to create Camelot. The problem with Camelot is it requires so much energy. It really is a brief, shining moment. And usually at the end of a project, a program, a sales pursuit, that team will maybe fall out and they'll take that happy memory elsewhere. So what can we realistically achieve that lasts and scales? And I want you to believe and know that experience management and XLAs, the agreements that underpin experience management, are the way to achieve great experiences at scale. So how did I get to this point? Well, basically, there are three parts of my own journey that led me to be an advocate for XLAs and experience management. The first was in outsourcing. I did a lot of outsourcing when I headed up the strategic outsourcing division at Hewlett Packard. And then later on, I led strategic outsourcing for TCS in North America. And what I found there is that the customer experience, how they feel about you in an outsourcing relationship, trumps any KPI, any contract, any agreement. And some of you will be familiar with the watermelon metric, where it's green on the outside and red on the inside, and inevitably leads to a decay in the relationship between a company and its suppliers. Now, that's how I got here, but you don't have to believe me. You should look at what's happening right now. XLAs are exploding all over the world. Our major focus areas are in Europe and Brazil and North America. And now with Pink Elephant, we're coming to South Africa, and I couldn't be more excited about that. So let me tell you, we see 3 common XLAs, experience level agreements, and each of these has its own payback and benefits. The first is the DEX-LA, the Digital Experience XLA, and this is probably the closest to ITSM. It is where we use sentiment to interpret the observability data that we see in our systems. Oftentimes, a product like NextThink, TeamViewer, Riverbed, Systrack will be used to achieve this. And when we see organizations deploying DEX-LAs, we see improved system performance. El Camino Hospital, for instance, achieved a 78% reduction in Windows logon times. Experian saw a 50% decrease in time spent resolving incidents. And generally, Gardner says we see reduced time spent on root cause analysis and much faster remediation. The second XLA is the service XLA, and usually it will emerge with the service desk, the digital workplace, or field services. And here the emphasis moves from process improvement to happiness and productivity of the audience. Oftentimes you may use happy signals or such a tool to measure this based on specific personas. And when we look at the results coming out of that, we see companies like Heineken achieving an 18% improvement in their FCA and FCR, and a 25% improvement in their audience happiness. Tietoevry is a large Scandinavian outsourcer, and they increased their client productivity by 50% and their NPS by 30%. The last XLA that's very popular now is the persona-based XLA at scale. And I'll be honest with you, this is probably for the most advanced customers we have. Companies like Vale. Vale is the largest mining company in the world, and they've implemented a company-wide XLA initiative called Oxygen. It's been running for 2 years, and they've saved $70,000 in out-of-pocket costs and 290,000 user hours per year that they've been able to return to the business. So how I'd like to end this is to let you know that the XLA Institute is the operating system for the experience economy. We aim to provide you with the best practices, knowledge, and tools to get the most out of your XLA programs. And we're very happy to partner with Pink Elephant to achieve this in South Africa. Ngiyabonga, thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I think that's given us a really good understanding a little bit about XLAs and starting to introduce some new terminology to us as well. I'm going to start with some questions, and people, don't be shy to be able to enter some questions into the chat. Use the emoticons if you like to be able to tell us if something resonates with you really nicely. We would like that kind of interaction as well with you. So don't be shy to do that. All right, I'm going to get into the first question, if I may. And talking about real world experience within the XLA environment. Tell me, when did you first hear about XLAs and what was your initial reaction? And then
Well, it was more that I was a little bit disappointed or looking for. I really tried to deliver a great service, and I thought that I could manage that with an SLA. And in the end, it felt not that we really brought the outcome and really the value on the table. So that's what we missed. And to be honest, in the beginning, when I heard about it, I thought, yes, this can be maybe the next movement, the next step. But in the beginning, it was very hard to make it tangible and measurable. So if it's only a survey on its own, that was not the solution. So we need to really bring it in combination with operational data, technical data, and sentiment data, and then you can make the difference. So that took some time, and more we see now that we really can bring it on the table. But it needs to be impacted not only on experience but business outcome. So that's what we try to do now.
Thank you, Robin. That is nice, and I love the way you talked about the tacit knowledge and the explicit knowledge that we have available to us in terms of different metrics. So, how can organizations start to build a culture where experience is valued as much as efficiency?
Yeah, well, what you see is that you need to add experience into your measurables, into your way of managing into your organization. So if you can add that step by step and don't remove the old topics of an SLA because you need them also. But if you can integrate that more with each other with some sentiment and experience, then it's getting the right way. And really measure on the experience instead of an operational KPI only. So do it really in combination.
In combination.
And then
Yeah,
and start small and show the results, because you can
and
really make results happen in a couple of months.
yeah, and this is real. It's an enhancement of our SLAs by having some of the reports that come out of that. Robin, to you maybe, have you encountered any resistance when suggesting experience-based approaches in some of the organizations that you've been engaged with?
Yeah, especially in the beginning. And to be honest, because what I said also in the beginning, it was maybe a little bit too fluffy because we couldn't make it tangible. But now we can make it tangible. You see that everywhere where we show really the whole approach, and that's in people, process, technology in combination. So you really can measure it. That will help, and you need to relate it to really business impact instead of only a better experience, because a better experience on its own is not enough. You want to be and the last part is, and that's a little bit skepticism was also in the beginning, it's as an IT provider, and it can be internal or external, you provide a service and you are reporting about how you deliver it. And that's exactly what Andrew also said, that's more the SLA. But the other way around is outside in, is that you get the business on the table and the user on the table about how did you really impact it and what did you experience. And in the beginning, there was skepticism also because they could manage it. What will they say on that way and how? But if you can make that now really part of the reporting, that will help. And that's what we try to achieve now.
Yeah. So, I mean, you talked about those reportings and you talked about the challenges that people have. So how do we balance the qualitative data, the quantitative data that we generally have, like CSATs, etc., with some of these qualitative stories and feedback that we're getting from our customers and our employees, for that matter?
Yeah, what you see a little bit with the existing there also, we're not going to compete with an SLA, but we're not going to compete also with a CSAT or an MPS. We can add something to it, and what you see is that we think you need the experience over time, because it's not a one-off. It's during the service that you use how you experienced it, and that's what we try to track and trace. So that's one part, and the second thing is that we really integrate it with the existing data that's already available, so that you align it with the operational and the technical data that's available into your organization. So
it's available. Yeah.
So that's
Thank you.
So it's add something, and it's more an integrated solution. That's what we try to achieve with it.
And we able to be able to learn more from that as well. Thank you. But Robin, I'm going to ask you again. You've been really involved in obviously in the XLA Institute and developing the courseware and the material and the certifications that come out of the understanding experience management. So how has the XLA framework shifted your internal conversations?
Well, it shifted because it started to become more an outside-in conversation,
Okay.
and that's what we try to achieve. Because if we could make it more an outside-in, then you need to have a very well factory IT factory and machine, as Andrew mentioned, and you need it to get that service delivered. But you need something about an outcome and experienced, and you need to relate that to technical insights and operational insight, because then you know how you can solve some of those topics. So the framework is really related from a business outcome to what do you need to ask from a sentiment perspective, and how can you relate it to the existing O and T data that's already available. So that makes it a shift, I think, especially if you do this during the month, because then you see a trend maybe, and then you can have a good discussion into an organization about what's happening.
Yeah. And you know that conversation is going to be, as you said, inside out and outside in, and we need to be able to generate that information as much as possible from the course itself. And the course is a really, really great course. There's obviously a lot of theory around XLA management or experience management, but what are some of the tools and practices from the course that we realize are really impactful?
Yeah. Well, if you what's really impactful is that you can really get the sentiment on it together with the ONT, as I mentioned already. What you can be also bring on the table is that really how you really can make it tangible and make it impactful for different teams, because most of the time you see that the product team is more measuring on O and T. But if you help them also to understand what the experience and what the outcome and what the results will be of their service, that will help them also to improve their service, not only from a technical perspective, but really from an outcome and a business perspective. So that's what we see. And what we see, it's maybe not fully the answer on your question, but now with the certification also on XLA verified for MSPs and these kind of organizations, you see that we try to get one standard about what is an XLA and how you can improve your XLA way of work into your organization. And also an MSP can be certified by us. So that means that you know that they will really implement it in the right way, and not only telling that they do XLAs, because I see a lot of XLA watching also in the market.
Oh,
And that's bad also for the real value what you can achieve with it.
Thank you. And I'm seeing some comments from the audience as well. Amanda says that she supports the view that we want to be able to integrate SLAs with XLAs. So it's always going to be XLAs and an enhancement to our SLA environment as well. Maybe I can ask you a question that's come from the audience. Willem has asked, he says, I think that XLA concept has been in real organizations for 7 to 10 years already. So the question, by naming it, are we not killing it like SLAs is a horrible word? And this is kind of where we want to be able to start looking at it's not SLAs versus XLAs, but XLA enhancing. So what do you think? Are we kind of dampening down the SLAs by giving it another word?
No, it's something you add an announcement on it, and you really need an SLA. So don't be because otherwise it will not be successful. So it's really a combination you need, but take the outside in and the SLA as the inside out way, and bring that together on the table. And sometimes it's easier to get that on the table and improve that in an organization if you're not in the cocoon already of an SLA, but that you really can implement it on its own and relate it to the SLA. So that's what we try to achieve.
Excellent. All right. I think we can't talk about IT in any way without talking about AI or analytics, very importantly. So do you think that AI and analytics is beginning to reshape the way we capture and act on experience data as well?
Yeah, we see that now already in two ways. We see it in gathering the experience, the data, and gathering that from an experience management perspective. So as I explained, the sentiment and the operational and the technical data, how can you bring that together? And with AI, it's much easier and quicker to get more insights of the existing data already from an experience management perspective. So that's what we do together with partners of the XLA Institute. And then you have DEX toolings, you have ITSM toolings and sentiment toolings, and we bring that together. And if you can combine it with some AI parts, that will help. And the second thing is from a chatbot perspective, you see that there is a lot of, how you communicate during a chatbot as a user or a customer gives also an impression about your experience. So that's also data. And then we don't have to ask you anything, but we gather already how you mention things, what does that matter, and is that a positive experience if you mention it in this way or a negative. So that's what we try to do. But it's these first steps, but at least we need to use it for sure.
Yeah. Robin, I like what you're doing with the XLA Institute, and Karini started talking about some comments about we want to get that experience feedback, and Karini's online and listening to us as well. And she talks about, is the environment really ready for this kind of measure, or is it all kind of talk? Now, you've been involved globally in the XLA Institute in developing some of the community of XLA, and obviously we've been starting to talk together as well about driving this community in South Africa as well. And I hope something really positive comes from that. But tell us a little bit about your experience of what's happening in Europe, in the USA, in Brazil. I know it's something quite nice that's happening there.
So what we started this year also with the state of XLA, the first. So we gathered everyone in the world where we could reach in a way, and we asked them some questions about how you look to XLAs. And what you saw is that. And I saw also one of the questions or chats already in it that it's not new XLA for a part of the group, for some of them, but we saw that 66% knew what an XLA was. They not had exactly the same definition about it. So that's what we try to achieve. And the second thing is that they said we need something to improve the outcome and the experience of a service. And XLA can be the tool, the mechanism, the how you call it, the best practice to achieve that. And are there alternatives? Well, not really. That's also what the market said. But to be honest, we need to improve how to implement so that you really can easily implement it. And you see organizations now are coming with XLA libraries that you really have a quick accelerator about how you implement it. You see coming experience management center solutions that gather already those XLAs and the XONT in it so that you can measure it directly. And we see the last 3 months, I had a lot of analyst sessions with Forrester and Gartner. And you see also that these analysts also mentioned more and more that, well, if you look to the hyper cycle, it went a little bit down. And that's most of the times because we had too much ambitions about it. And then we are a little bit disappointed. And then we drive it more about what we really need. And now Gardner is also mentioning, and Forrester, is that we can make it more concrete. We really can bring the value on it. So they expect also the coming years that more and more organizations will lean on XLAs next to SLAs. So it's not that it will replace those, it will be added to it, and it will give them some extra value.
Yeah, and I want to encourage people to go on to, and there's a QR code for the XLA Institute on your screen right now. Go and look at what they do. There's so many resources available to be able to look at, what XLAs are really about and how it enhances SLA environment and how we start to be able to inculcate it into our ways of working more than anything else as well. Robin, it's just you and I together today for the rest of the time. I want, and it's great, and I love this because your experience is something that people want to hear about, and to be able to be able to connect with more than anything. So, what do you think is the best way to be able to translate an XLA into terms that some of our boards and our C-suite will be able to understand?
Yeah, well, thank you for mentioning also the institute and the link to it. So please, if you join the institute, it's a free member, and that helps us because we also do pollings within the institute about what do you need from a capability development or from an
Hmm.
how to implement or whatever it is. And that's what we try to achieve then also in the coming months to deliver more. So that's a little bit one of the sorry. That's one of the main goals. But if you look to it from a C-level board perspective, yeah, that's exactly the same with an SLA. They are not interested in uptime or in KPIs from that perspective. You need to translate it to really business impact,
Hmm.
employee impact, because if you look to it from an enterprise service management perspective, because that's what's starting more and more. So
Yep.
it's not only for a specific IT service, but you can also use it for an HR onboarding service, or you can use it for a facility service. And more organizations need a sensor and need something to have an understanding about how are these services be received into their own organization. So that will help. But you need to explain it more and more from a business perspective
Yep.
about more productivity, more happier employees is too fake. But on the other hand, if they will leave you, you're not happy in
Yeah.
this situation. So if you can manage them more and more with services that really fit for purpose for their role, and that's also one of the things we address with an XLA,
Right.
that will help.
Yeah. So how do we change those leaders' mindsets? How do we help them to embrace experience management?
Yeah, to be honest, I was in the ITIL world 25 years ago, and if I learned it, in a way, it starts with that you believe in that you need something extra. So more and
Yeah.
more, you will see that the IT service will be a community of a commodity. It will be there. It will be doing already its topic, but how can you really make the difference?
Hmm.
And therefore, you need something extra. And one of those things can be experience management and XLA. It's not the
Yeah.
only thing, but it can really help you. So if you believe in that, and if you think you can step in onto the journey now, because then you will be one of the first ones, and more we see that the value is really bringing into those organizations.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the course. You've created the framework, the XLA framework, and we have the foundation certification that we do as well. Within Pink Elephant in South Africa, we're going to be running our next course on the 13th and 14th of October. So for those of you who are interested, please use that QR code to register for the course, or even find out more information about XLAs and how Pink is going to be able to drive that a little bit for your organization. So please do that. Tell me a little bit about the course from your perspective. What is the acceptance of the course and the aha moments that have maybe come out of the course? Andrew alluded to that, some of that in his introduction as well. What are some of the aha moments that you've heard of people experiencing on the course?
Well, I think that the realization that experience can be systematically measured, so that
Hmm.
it's really doable, that you relate it to business outcome,
Yeah.
and that's also possible, and that you start outside in by which is the what service, what impact we like to achieve with this service, and how can you raise an XLA that's related the outcome. So it's also part of that discussions instead of only improving your IT factory to deliver the service, turn it
Hmm.
around and really ask the business outcome. So it gives you also a better dialogue with your business into an
Okay.
organization.
So it helps to start creating that information flow back and forth as well. Yeah, and I like that. So what kind of advice would you be, and I'm just throwing something at you now, what kind of advice would you give to a company who's starting on this XLA journey?
Start small. Don't do only. We start with a fundament from a foundation perspective that you understand the wording, the terms. It's a little bit the same as what we did with ITIL. In the beginning, it's important that we have the same definitions and the same terms. So if we, that's what you can achieve with the foundation. And from there on, really start with an XLA, implement it into your organization. Try to measure it, and if you can see the value, then they see better and understand better what the value is, and then you can move on step by step. So don't do it as a big thing in the beginning. Pick up one of the services, find a team internally that really think we can make something of this, and then with some support or of Pink, for example, you can really get step by step this done into your organization, and that's then you see the value. But start.
So here's an interesting comment from Freddie, who's online, and he said that individual experiences are subjective. What feels like the same service to one person may be perceived very differently by another. Right? How can we ensure that the service we deliver is experienced consistently by everyone?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's exactly what you
interesting.
try to achieve with an XLA, because you're not interested in the individual response. But if you look to it from an overall concept, let's say that you have 12,000 employees into your organization, then you ask 1,000 people every month, and so every month another 1,000, not the same. And if you can define it on personas, that there are different personas, then you can split it a little bit per persona. And then you have a little bit, then you have an understanding about how it's experienced overall. So you're not interested in Julian as a person, but I'm interested in all the Julians together about how is their experience of it. And yes, then you have some very positive and maybe negative, but if you have enough experience data, then that gives you a good understanding about how it's experienced. And what's very important from an XLA perspective, that you bring it back also the XLA score of the service every month to all of your employees, because then they see also how is it experienced. And then sometimes they say, hey, maybe I'm too negative because all my colleagues give it a better number. And sometimes you say, hey, maybe I'm too positive instead of it. But and you see also if there's happened something with your experience outcome. So if there are sometimes there are simple changes to implement to get a better experience already. So that will help also. But it's not an individual. You're fully right, and that's exactly, you can see also some of the blocks, from example, LNNs with the Starbucks case. The Starbucks have 40,000 stores, so they are interested in how can we manage that the experience in all those stores is on the same level instead of one individual customer in one store. And that's exactly the mindset that we have with an XLA. It needs to be scalable, and you need to manage it over the personas instead of the individuals.
That's interesting, and I know that theory is really much in the course that we are going to deliver on the 13th and 14th of October. And for those of you who are interested, Freddie, come and join us on that course. And it's not just about the theory that we're talking about getting the data, about understanding experience and how we start to create a language that is a common language amongst ourselves as service management professionals as well. One of the tools that I've seen in the course, which I thought was really, really good, is about journey mapping. Right. And journey mapping helps us to be able to take IT beyond some of the data that we're getting from our feedback as well. How do you see journey mapping as a tool?
Yeah, well, exactly. What you see is that we are have also partnerships with CX companies and communities. And what you see is these are, well, their customer journey is their way of living in a way. So they describe it very detailed. And what we did from an IT perspective is we develop a service and then we provide it. but we don't do anything of a journey perspective. So I think that what we are also developing, that was one of the members asked about in the institute, something like a CX XLA micro course, to get the experience of what CX is normal for them already, how we can add that into the XLA way of work, and the other way around we do also, because luckily there's also some value from an IT perspective that we can provide to the CX community. So we build those kind of micro classes together. And that's one of the things that's on the roadmap for Q4, so that we can provide something like that. And customer journey is definitely in that.
That's great. And I love the way we're integrating all of what we're talking about into some other avenues of IT management and service management as well. If you had some unlimited resources, what bold experience initiative would you want to be able to implement first?
Well, I think I should start with what's easier now and where we have a lot of experience in. So then you have a lot of impact is for a digital workplace and for IT support. These are so well, and we have a lot of knowledge already about which T data you can then gather from different DEX tools. And don't take too much of those data points. Take just 6, 7, 8 data points in the beginning. We understand which of the incident tickets information can give you a better understanding about experience. So start with those two, and show the value, and start with an XMO in a way, experience management office, into your organization. And yes, in the beginning that's maybe a more role instead of a full department. But it helps you to have 2 or 3 people into your organizations who aligning a little bit the product teams with the user teams from an XMO perspective. Say, hey, this is what we see from an experience, and how can we improve the experience of your service? And where we do that in a way of an XMO, you see that in 2-3 months, the development teams, the product teams are more open for every month. How is the XLA score, and how can we improve our service so that it will be a better experience and a better outcome, so a better business impact for the business.
Wow. Okay. It's interesting. I didn't hear about XMOs, and that's something that's moving on. It kind of leads me to my next question. So, what do you think? And yes, in some organizations, our maturity levels are not as great as we would like it to be, and we're beginning to explore XLA and experience very importantly, and we're creating the reports and we're creating the tools to be able to gather the data as well, to be able to understand perception and very importantly. So, but even if you could look into the future, what do you think the next generation of XLAs looks at beyond IT, for that matter?
Well, I think what I said already, it's starting a little bit more in the enterprise service management area. So it's facilities, HR, so it's broader. And I hope, and I see already that from a technology perspective, that the DEX domain is improving.
Yeah.
We have a lot of DEX partners in the institute, and they're all looking for how can we improve from DEX to XLA in a way. Because, that's what they see. So that's what I think that will happen from a technology perspective, to bring it more together. I think that the last thing is what I see is that AI really brings another that's a game changer in a way. So that the experience can be collected easily, and the experience will be delivered by AI in a way. So that's also that you need to monitor and manage.
For those of us who are really excited about how XLAs are actually evolving in the world, and how our service management environments are being enhanced by XLAs, etc., William again makes a really bold statement in the chat, and he says, I disagree with the panel. Remove SLAs. It's not adding value. What do you think about that?
No, I like. Well, it's a bold statement, and Willem, nice to have your response on it. Yeah, I think that there is value of an SLA. So I don't expect that we can. It's too much value you deliver to an XLA if you only gonna measure on an XLA. To be honest, so that's why I think you need something. You're right on it that if you look to the number of KPIs and the number of things that are added now in SLA, you can make that lean and mean more, and hopefully that will happen, because now you see sometimes that if the relation is not good, then we get more KPIs in the SLA. And what I suggest is don't add that into the SLA, but start with the XLA, and then you get a better understanding about the relation and the outcomes and the results as a receiver of the service. And then you can have also a discussion about, we have some discussion already from this perspective, Willem, because if one of the MSP says, if I know exactly what the experience is, then I choose earlier for achieving the experience than meeting the requirements of an SLA. So, and then I thought, okay, if you choose for that, then you're right in a way that you need less SLA parts. But we need to lean on a structured governance way of delivering the service. And that's what you achieve with an SLA and with IT service management in general, because it's more, the SLA is for me also incident, problem, change, config, and all those processes that you need to embed into your organization. Yeah.
Yeah, and very importantly, that helps us to measure productivity and how well we are working. So really, XLAs complement SLAs more than anything, and they help to support one another for excellent service delivery. And that's what we're looking at. How do we enhance that service delivery beyond just traditional, beyond just the simple metrics of enhancing of productivity? Let's understand the experience a little bit more as well. Nadine has another question from the audience, and she says SLAs are objective and measurable quite nicely, and I've just mentioned that XLAs tend to be more subjective. How do we measure some of the cost benefit of XLAs? Because that's something that people are going to respond to as well.
Yeah, well, I think you can make them also less subjective. So you can define also an objective for your XLA. And if you have defined the objective, what you try to achieve, but the same with SLA, if you start with it and you said, well, I go for 99%, blah, blah, all these kind of things, please start first with measuring, and then you know what you can achieve. And if you know what you can achieve, you can say, okay, is it enough or do we need to improve? And that's exactly with the XLAs. And because we can really make it objective and measurable, that's one. And yes, one of the topics in the foundation version 2, what we deliver now since the 1st of September, is the return on experience. Is also part of the implementation, so that you really define in the beginning which service, what will be the return on experience of this service, and how can we add that into the whole framework and in the way of we define the XLA. So are we there? Well, I hope we can achieve more and more to get it very, but it's always different topics together that will make the benefits. It's not only an XLA or not only SLA or not only, it's a combination.
Yeah, I think XLA benefits are generally measured in not just lower IT costs as well, but in freed up human potential as well, happier employees and better business outcomes if we begin to utilize some of the metrics that come out of some of the XLAs that we're going to be looking at. The last question that we have from Sizakile says, how do XLAs work practically with practices such as incident management, problem management, change management? I think the very important thing is the course that we do is not just a foundation course. There's a foundation and a practitioner course. And where the foundation course talks a lot about the theory of experience management, the practitioner course goes into some of how we're going to start to implement it. So how do we see it in ITSM? How does XLAs actually help to drive some of what we're looking at and the practices of incident and problem and request, etc.?
Yeah, well, a good question. And what we try to achieve is that we're not a siloed thing on its own again, with XLAs, but they were integrated in the existing way of work into an organization. And well, we all come from, let's say, the IT service management history. So that's a good point and a bad point in a way, but let's use this as a good point. So we can really integrate it in problem management, because what we do is we raise problems, experience management problems, how you can improve your service. And you can also, and that's from a return on experience perspective, also important, you can raise changes. And if you improve those changes, what will be the impact of the return on experience if you implement this change? So we really add it into your existing processes. That's definitely what have to be done. Otherwise, we will be a silo on its own, and I don't believe in that. So you need to integrate in the existing way of work.
Yeah. Robin, thank you so much. I really enjoyed as we just started to scratch the surface a little bit about XLAs and how it enhances SLAs and some of the metrics and some of the conversations with our board members and our leaders in the organization to be able to drive XLA. And I really want to thank you for joining us today. I'm sorry I didn't get to hear some more of Andrew's, and that was just a little technical glitch. But I think we were able to you get some really nice, rich perspectives today as well. What we have seen is that XLAs aren't just about new metrics, they're about reimagining IT as an experience-driven service. From a culture change in storytelling to AI-driven insights in boardroom conversations, XLAs are showing us that what gets measured can shape how people feel, how they perform, and how they stay engaged. And what is clear is that while SLAs help us to be able to measure performance, XLAs help us to measure perception and value. And that's what truly matters to our users as well. Whether you're just discovering experience management, already piloting XLAs as well, the shift towards human-centered IT is really underway as well. And the challenge ahead is not just to measure, but to be able to act on these experiences as well. And I like that. And I think Andrew mentioned something about this in the beginning. He says that if SLAs measure the engine, then XLAs measure the journey. And together, they define how far we have traveled and how well we have traveled. And I love that. And thank you, Andrew, for throwing that up in the beginning as well. So use the QR code, go and look at register for the course. We have the course running from the 13th and the 14th of October. Thank you, everybody who has contributed on the chat as well. I really appreciate that very, very importantly as well. Let's continue to make experience not just a buzzword, but a strategic advantage as well. And everybody who contributed to making this successful, thank you very much. We are going to be having more in the series on next generation service management. So thank you again, Robin, and all of those involved.